Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vrayajanaranjana Odanandana Vrayajanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Vihari Jaya Gopiyana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopiyana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vrayajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrayajanaranjana Vrayajanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivashari Gaura Bhaktavrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivashari Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grandara Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Gaura Premanandi, Hare Hare Bol. Narayan Naramamskriptya Naram Jaiva Narotaman Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Yayan Udhirajet Nasta Prayesva Vadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamai Sloke Bhaktir Bhavaiti Naistikim Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 25 to 25, entitled The Glories of Lord Ananta, and today we are reading text number 9. This text is a verse, so we can try to recite. Excuse me, Prabhu, can you read the text on the board? It's easy for you to read it? Yeah. Okay. Utpati stiti layahe tavosya kalpaha. Can you read it? No? No. Okay. Satyaya prakriti gunajat ikshayasam Jat rupa druvana-kritan jat ekan atman Nanadat katan uhavedatasya varsma Utpatisti layaheta vosya kalpaha Satwadya prakriti gunajat ikshayasam Jat rupan dhruvan akritan jat eka atman Nanadat kata uha vedatasya vardhma Utpatisti layaheta vosya kalpaha. The second line. Utpatisti layaheta vosya kalpaha. Satwadya prakriti gunajat ikshayasam Jad rupan dhruvan akritan jad ekan atman Nanatakan tanuhavedatasya vatma. Thank you. Utpatisti layaheta vosya kalpaha Sattvadia prakriti guna yad ikshayasan. Yad rupan dhruvanakritam yad ekanatman. Nanadat katanaha vedatasya vatma. Thank you. Anyone else who would like to repeat it? Upati laya tavosya kalpaha. Sattvadia prakriti gunajat ikshayasan. Yad rupan dhruvan akritat tam yad eka atman. Nanadat katan uha vedatasya vartma. Thank you. We can not do the word by word and translation. Upati of creation, sthiti, maintenance, laya, and dissolution, hetavaha, the original causes, asya, of this material world, kalpaha, capable of acting, sattva adiyaha, headed by the sattva guna, prakriti gunaha, the modes of material nature, jat, of whom, ikshaya, by the glance, asan, became, jat rupam, the form of whom, dhruvan, unlimited, akritam, uncreated, jat, whom, ekam, one, atman, in himself, nana, variously, adat, has manifested, katam, how, uha, certainly, veda, can understand, tasya, his, vartma, path. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. By his glance, the Supreme Personality of Godhead enables the modes of material nature to act as the cause of the universal creation, maintenance, and destruction. The Supreme Soul is unlimited and beginningless, and although he is one, he has manifested himself in many forms. How can human society understand the ways of the Supreme? From the Vedic literature, we learn that when the Supreme Lord glances sa over the material energy, the three modes of material nature become manifest and create material variety. Before he glances over the material energy, there is no possibility of the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the material world. The Lord existed before the creation, and consequently, he is eternal and unchanging. Therefore, how can any human being, however great a scientist or philosopher he can be, understand the ways of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The following quotations from Chaitanya Bhagavat, Adikanda 148:52 and 158:69 tell of the glories of Lord Ananta. So this part we will do it. Was also almost 20 verses that we can gradually approach. So if you don't mind, we will do it piece by piece, while we will be talking a bit this, commenting a bit this text, if you agree. So basically, I'll repeat the translation again. By his glance, the Supreme Personality of Godhead enables the modes of material nature to act as the cause of the universal creation, maintenance, and destruction. The Supreme Soul is unlimited and beginningless, and although he is one, he has manifested himself in many forms. How can human society understand the ways of the Supreme? So this part is quite clear in this, talking specific qualities about the Supreme Lord. Who Krishna is the origin of everything, but at the same time, he manifests himself in different ways. And now in this specific chapter, we are talking about Lord Ananta. Previous text, it said that how Lord Ananta is nicely described, his features, his attributes, his power, and also his interactions, how he interacts with his devotees. One important point that we should understand is that in his form as Anantadev, Krishna Anantadev is Krishna himself, coming from Sankarshan, that is one expansion of Krishna. As we previously discussed, that Krishna comes manifests himself in different forms. Like we talk about different types of avatars. With based in Chaitanya Charitamrita, teachings of Lord Chaitanya, that the Supreme Lord, Krishna is Tu Bhagavan Swayam. He is the original source of all incarnations. So Krishna, from him, different forms of Krishna, different forms of Vishnu emanate. So we know that Krishna, his first expansion is, who is the first expansion of Krishna? No? Balaram? Yeah? And from Balaram, it's the Chaturvyuha, so different forms of Vishnu, and that means Sankarshan, Vasudeva, Pradyumna, and Niruddha. And from Sankarshan, this is Anantadev is Sankarshan. So Sankarshan, that is a form of Krishna, expands himself in the form of Ananta. Two who have different functions. Now here is described one of his functions. But we should understand that Sankarshan is Krishna himself that take this form to perform different activities. For example, for the creation or manifestation of this material world. Krishna doesn't do it directly, he does it through different incarnations, and this case we are talking about Sankarshan, that then from Sankarshan comes Mahavishnu, who is the one who glances to the material energy, the pradhana. In that way is that the activation of this pradhana takes place because Krishna is activating it. Before that, it's no activation, it's not manifested, this material world. Something that we were talking before about it. I guess you are familiar with this topic. I won't go much about it, but just briefly touching about how this takes place. when the Pradhan has been, the Lord has glanced the Pradhan, that means become Mahatattva, the material world, and at that moment is the modes of material nature take place, so the activation. He said that without the modes of material nature, that means goodness, passion, and ignorance, there is no place for the creation and maintaining some destruction. It has to be there. So everything is in this material manifestation. It's orchestrated, organized based on these three modes of nature. And Krishna in the Bhagavad-gita, in the chapter 14, Krishna tells Arjuna something very important. Perhaps we can revise a little bit and understand the importance of this knowledge. Krishna himself in the Bhagavad-gita, chapter 14, text, chapter 14 is entitled The Three Modes of Material Nature. Krishna says, text 1, the Supreme Personality of Godhead says, again, I shall declare to you this supreme wisdom, the base of all knowledge, knowing which all the sages have obtained the supreme perfection. Text 2 is, by becoming fixed in this knowledge, one can obtain to the transcendental nature like my own. Thus established one is not born at the time of creation or disturbed at the time of dissolution. The total material substance called Brahman is the source of the birth, and it is that Brahman that I impregnate, making possible the birth of all living beings, O son of Bharata. It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by the birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-given Father. So this point is quite important. Krishna himself is saying, by understanding of this knowledge, we will be able to transcend and achieve the transcendental abode where Krishna lives. It's the power, is so powerful, so effective, this knowledge, that by living this knowledge, realizing this knowledge, we also will be able to understand who we are. And by this understanding, whatever takes place in the material nature as a part of the interaction of the three modes of material nature won't create disturbance on us, because we will be placed in the proper understanding about our real nature. And it's the way how we can get the liberation of what we are looking for: eternal happiness, freedom, our real constitutional nature. So Krishna explained that. And also, he said he is the one who is the father of all living entities. See, acknowledging that what is our constitutional nature. We are the kids of Krishna. Krishna, God, is our father in our constitutional position. And so as a father, there is a relationship, the father and the children. So it's a very strong relationship that there is constitutional, it's our constitutional position. And in that way, Krishna is aware of that, acknowledge that, and he interacts with us in that way, despite that we are not well aware of this eternal relationship, and sometimes in our independent or cover consciousness, we try to act independent from him, away from God, and experience all the consequences that are no happiness and disturbance of these three modes of nature. This is quite important point to understand, and that is because Krishna, in specific in this part of the Bhagavatam, it's emphasizing the nature of God, of Krishna, as the origin of everything. And nothing takes place before him, even when the material nature is destroyed, annihilated, he remained there. Ananta means the one who doesn't have end. Or Shesha, sorry. Shesha means the one who doesn't have end. Ananta means unlimited. So, because Krishna has unlimited qualities, unlimited power, and in this case, for example, when in the chapter where Lord Ananta is holding the whole Bhumandal on his head, if we revise a bit the content of what we were studying from the chapter 16, it's describing the whole structure of the universe, the different planetary systems, and he said that all those 14 planetary systems, as part of the universe, are just sitting on one of the hoods of Lord Ananta, who has thousands of hoods. And it's such a way that the weight of those whole Bhumandal sitting on his head is just compared to a drop of water, or mustard seed. Mustard seed, it's almost like a nothing if we compare by dimensions, because in Bhagavatam the description is the whole universe, the dimension of the diameter of whole universe is 4 billion miles, yeah? So it's, and the distance between Patala Loka and the Garbhodaka ocean, the Garbhodaka ocean, is 240,000 miles. That distance is the body, or that's the height of the body of Ananta, because he said that Ananta is lying on the Garbhodaka ocean. Yeah, on the top of his hood is the Bhumandal, so it's 204,000 miles. So that is supposed to, we should understand that is the height of the Lord, Ananta's form. But Bhumandal, all the 14, all the 7 subterranean planets, and Bhumandal, it's in dimension, it's a little bit more, but the weight, it's a lot of weight for us, but for Ananta, it's nothing. It's just the weight compared of a small mustard seed on his head that he doesn't even feel about it. So it's just it's an analogy trying to understand how much or how powerful is Lord Ananta, and for us to have grab a little bit about the qualities of God, who is God. Because he manifests different forms with a different purpose, but the main purpose for Krishna to incarnate, to create all this material universe, is clearly established in Bhagavatam, is to facilitate us, living entities, our process of back to Godhead, back home. There is one nice pastime. That personally, I was listening one lecture, and I thought that it's quite beautiful to exemplify why Krishna is taking many forms. No? Because here, for example, in this specific text, it said that Krishna has unlimited forms. And for human beings, for us, it's very difficult to understand. We can maybe also question why the Lord has to take so many forms, and he can send other living, different. He can make other arrangement, or he can send somebody else to this material world. Why he has to have many incarnations? And basically, as we said before, is because the Lord wants to facilitate the living entity, his children's, the process to back to our original constitutional position, our home, spiritual world. As I said, this one a nice pastime is said that perhaps you heard before, Akbar and Bilbar. Akbar is he was an ancient king, the royal king. He has a lot of wealth and many people serving him. And Bilbar was one of his ministers, who was a counselor. So Akbar himself also has the same question: why the Lord has to come personally or to come to this material world? It's not needed. He can send somebody else, or make some arrangements. So Bilbar said, okay, I'll answer that question, but give me some time, but I'll answer that question. Okay, so Akbar accepted, and he said, okay, I'll give you time. And one day, the king decided to go to have some picnic with his family, his relatives, and close relatives, his children and wife, and they went nice in a boat, having nice picnic, and Bilbar was with him as well. So while they were playing nicely on the boat, having a good time, Bilbar was playing with the little kid of younger son of the king, Akbar. While they were playing, Bilbar dropped the little kid in the water, and Akbar saw that he was so desperate anxiety, and he himself jumped in the water trying to rescue his son. And then he was so upset, and they told Bilbar, why did you do that? You should be careful, this is my son. Why did you drop him in the water? He can be killed. And Bilbar said, I just trying to answer the question that you did before. You make the question before about why the Lord has to come personally. And Akbar said, how is that? Say, well, you can, to save your son, you can ask your soldiers, others, they can do better job than you because they're better swimmers, whatever. But you didn't even think about it. You just jumped yourself to save your son out of love, out of care. You didn't care much about other things. So yourself came to save. The same way, Krishna is coming to this material world to rescue us out of love, out of care. So in that way is how it's explained why Krishna comes himself to this material world. And I personally found this pastime, this story quite graphic for us, to inspire us as well, give us quite a motivation and encouragement, a sense of perhaps confidence that we have a Father who is very caring, who is very loving, and He's willing to do everything for us to rescue us. And in that way, a motivation also to reciprocate. It's said that for everyone, it's a normal tendency that every human being, every living being, not just humans, the necessity to feel love, the necessity of love, care, and many of the problems that we experience in our society, especially in human beings, is that there is a lack of loving exchanges, sincere very precarious, that interaction, that relationship. It's always with interest or some, I would say, mixture of the desires there, but it's not an unconditional love expressed naturally. And there, for that reason, there is a lot of frustration and disappointment and suffering. But to know that there is one person, the Supreme Person, who loves us, who is ready to interact with us without any interest or self-interest, except just to give us love, protection for our own benefit. That can create a lot of hope, also happiness and enthusiasm in the living entities. It's something that we need to share with others as well, and realize ourselves how important for our spiritual practice and our also material life, if we want to say. If we understand who we are, what is our nature, as Krishna in the Bhagavad-gita also emphasized, as a spiritual souls, if we really understand that, we have a Father who is willing to do everything for us. That is a fact, that is real. Okay, that is part of the first part of this presentation that I wanted to mention. And now we can try to revise a bit what the Chaitanya Bhāgavatam is describing about Lord Anantadev. Because he said that by hearing the glories of Anantadev, there's also another important benefit. By hearing these glories, we can cleanse our heart. All the contaminations in our heart can be cleansed, and then awaken our real knowledge, and at the same time experience the happiness that we are looking for. So the benefit is that. So let's hear about these glories and hopefully receive the benefit by doing it. In the Chaitanya Bhāgavatam said that Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, the four Kumaras, Sanaka, Sanatan, Sanandana, and Sanat Kumara, Vyasadev, Sukadev Goswami, and Narada are all pure devotees, eternal servants of the Lord. Lord Sri Ananta is worshipped by all the uncontaminated devotees mentioned above, and he has thousands of hoods, and is the reservoir of all devotional service. Lord Ananta is the original person and the great mystic controller. At the same time, he is a servant of God, a Vaishnava, since there is no end to his glories, no one can understand him fully. So this part is quite important to understand. Before, in the beginning, we mentioned that Krishna is the original source of all incarnations, and from him, for example, the first expansion is Balaram. And from Balaram we have all the Chaturvyuhas and Karsana, in this case Ananta. And this point is very important. He is the reservoir of all devotional service. That means, as a Balaram, we know that he takes different forms to serve Krishna. Krishna is God, and Balaram is the servitor God. In this case, also in our altar, we have Nityananda. And as a servitor God, he is the reservoir of all devotional service. We as a devotees, we are trying to be engaged in devotional service. And Lord Ananta, Nityananda, Balaram, they are the reservoir of devotional service. So quite important for us to understand this point, and how if we are aiming to be engaged in devotional service, we can now know what is the way how we can obtain that devotional service by approaching Lord, the controller of devotional service. That means Ananta. We also know that it's Srimati Radharani. So in this Ananta, it says, for example, in the Pastimes, Chaitanya Charitamrita is describing Lord Balaram, Nityananda, and he expands himself in 10 different ways how he served the Lord. He is, for example, the place where the Lord is residing, so Vrindavan. When we hear Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, so it's when we visit even Vrindavan, then we should understand that is Balaram, is Ananta Dev, who is expanding himself to serve the Lord in the form of the Dham. Also, he expands himself as the bed for the Lord, the umbrella, the fan of the Lord. He expands himself as a Saka, or as a friend of the Lord, of the cowherd boys. He expands himself as the brother, as we know, Saka. And also, as his clothes, Krishna's vastran, Krishna's avaranam, his jewelry, his ornaments. Also, it's about his shoes. It's 10 different ways. His bed, Krishna's bed. At night time, devotees, Brajaraj Prabhu, sometimes he put the Lordship to rest. He offered the bed to the Lord, no? A bed for the Lord for resting, Sajana. And that is Ananta. It's Krishna, it's Balaram. He will expand himself to serve the Lord. No? When you put the Lordship to rest, you know, okay, Ananta is here, is the Lord himself. In that way, we should also understand the temple is an expansion of the Lord. So how careful we should be by interacting with all the paraphernalia of the Lord, all his, well, especially some devotees we are doing perhaps deity worship, altar, dressing the Lord, awareness of the Lord, his clothes, his jewelry, it's Ananta. And we are interacting with the Lord in that way. Wow, it's quite important to remember. I'm just sharing with you this because also I need that personally. I'm doing deity worship, and many times I forget that the Lord, his paraphernalia and his clothes is Krishna himself, and the dealings with the paraphernalia of the Lord, sometimes we neglect the careful, the care and how delicate they are, and we just, we are not careful dealing with that. No? So it's important to remember that as well. And Krishna, him expanding himself as Ananta, is orchestrating and organizing the service for the Lord. And we as aspiring servants, aspiring to have devotional service, so we should be perhaps be more mindful how to deal with these service opportunities that we have, and request Lord Ananta, Lord Sankarshan and Krishna, Nityananda, Balaram, the ability for us to be engaged properly in devotional service. We have the opportunity, but we don't take many times that benefit or that opportunity in a proper manner. Sometimes we neglect our devotional services. Very soon on Friday, from Friday onwards, the temple will be reopened. So more people will be able to come to the temple. And also more devotees will be able to resume their service. And in this way, more opportunity of devotional service, and trying to understand the value of that. Now we are studying or reading about the glories of Lord Ananta as the reservoir of devotional service, and be able to perform the devotional service with the proper consciousness, the ability to do it in a quality way, we should request blessings and prayers to Lord, pray to Lord Ananta for that option, for that ability, and also for that service that we are hankering for. Continue with this. Is the next part is Lord Ananta is the original person. Sorry, we just read that. I have already spoken to you of his service to the Lord. Now hear how the self-sufficient Ananta exists in the lower planetary system of Patala. Bearing his stringed instrument, the tambura, on his shoulder, the great sage Narada Muni always glorified Lord Ananta. Narada Muni has composed many transcendental verses in praise of the Lord. Simply due to the glance of Lord Ananta, the three material modes of nature interact and produce creation, maintenance, annihilation. These three modes of nature appear again and again. This part we also read it in Bhagavad-gita, now in Bhagavatam, and this part is the Chaitanya Bhagavata. So we can see how the Shastras are supporting each other. It's not that when one book or one Shastra says something different, so they are complementing each other. So in that way, it's important for us to, as a evidence, this whatever Bhagavatam is said as a Mahabharata, as the Bhagavata Purana, also the other literatures we read in the 14th chapter Bhagavad-gita, Krishna himself is affirming this process of the three modes of material nature as the way how the creation takes place, or the creation of this material world, the manifestation of this material world take place. The creation, maintenance, and destruction is the way how interacting with the three modes of nature that we spoke before. But mainly the point is that all the Vedic literature are connected, so are supporting each other. Bhagavatam, we see Bhagavad-gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita, in our case as a Vaishnava, as a Brahma Gaudiya Sampradaya. We have these books, this literature, and the knowledge that they are conveying to us are all complemented and supported each other. Okay, continue. The Lord is glorified as one without second, and as the supreme truth who has no beginning. Therefore, he is called Anantadev, unlimited. Who can understand him? His form is completely spiritual, and he manifested only by his mercy. All the activities in this material world are conducted only in his form. So again, it's another point to understand. Krishna, all his manifestations, all his avatars are spirituals. Here is said his form is completely spiritual. So it's not that Krishna take a body or has an incarnation, and like us is exposed to the influence of material nature, and then like us, we have a body that will deteriorate or will change, and at the end will be destroyed. Krishna's form doesn't have that. It's not affected like us because his forms are all spiritual. In this case, Anantadev, thousand-hooded serpent is also spiritual. It means eternal, no changes, and unlimited in his powers and his energies. He is very powerful, always prepared to please his personal associate and devotees. Wow, this is very important. Krishna, another characteristic, another special feature of God. By him being all-powerful, he has a special characteristic. He has a special attitude. Try to please his associate and devotees. So Krishna is always loving, has the loving propensity. He will always try to please his devotees. Quite important to know that. So how that loving exchange for us will be a motivation, knowing that Krishna will do everything to please his devotees. So let's try to become a devotee, try to please the Lord, and that way reciprocate with him. In our attempt to become a devotee, so Krishna will reciprocate, he will try to please the devotees. So it's a loving exchanges between the Lord and his devotees. He is not overwhelmed with his power, because that the material tendency that people has, how much power they have, the pride overcome, and in that way, it's not like they will seek to please others. They will try, or they are expecting others to please them. When people are with powers or having some facilities, the general tendency in the material world is that you expect others, the others will respect you, others will serve you, others will do whatever you want to. So, but in case of Krishna, he has all the powers, all an unlimited capacity, but he is not overcome with pride. He is ready to do whatever is required to please his devotees and all his associates. We see in Krishna's pastimes when, for example, in case of Arjuna, Krishna is the source of everything. During the battle of Kurukshetra, Krishna took a form or a position of a charioteer, that in order to facilitate Arjuna's service, try to please Arjuna, he was receiving the kicks of Arjuna just to facilitate his service, not to loving exchanges with Arjuna in that way. He is the supreme controller, but he was ready to accept that position. Or for example, it said that when Krishna was little, being the supreme, when he was trying to serve his parents, he used to carry his father's shoes on his head, walking a little and trying to please his father, doing that endeavor to do that loving exchange that he expressed. And with every devotee, and with Lord Chaitanya pastimes, and that extent, for example, we can see the pure devotees also embody that quality of the Lord. We see in the different pastimes of Srila Prabhupada with his devotees, and the attitude with his disciples, with people in general, the compassion that Prabhupada expressed for every living being. It said once when he was here in Melbourne, where Prabhupada and his devout disciples were in the center, in the city, and Prabhupada saw a lot of people walking like crazy, going to work and a lot of anxiety during that time. And Prabhupada, just watching that, he was crying, some tears were on his eyes, because the compassion that he was experiencing, how much these people is suffering. They are suffering, and Prabhupada, because that love that he has, as a pure devotee, he also embodied the same mood that the Lord has. And in some degrees, we perhaps many devotees experience from their spiritual masters as well. Advanced devotees, in their effort to preach, in their effort to help the disciples in growing and coming back to Krishna in their spiritual life, a lot of loving exchanges. Some devotees share some pastimes, how their spiritual master reciprocate and inspiring them as well. All come from God, from Krishna. So it's something that can give us a lot of hope, encouragement to practice also our spiritual life. And the next point is described quite important also, is that if we simply try to engage in the congregational chanting of the glories of Lord Ananta, the dirty things in our hearts accumulated during many births will immediately be washed away. Therefore, a Vaishnava never loses the opportunity to glorify Ananta-dev. So quite important, the congregational chanting of the glories of Lord Ananta-dev. What will be the most effective way to glorify Lord Ananta? Congregational chanting. We somehow or another, we have that experience by chanting the holy names. Yeah? Do you think it would be another way to glorify Ananta-dev by chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra? Do you think it's the glories of Ananta-dev chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra? Not directly? Yeah, for example, Prabhupada explained what we are asking when we are chanting Hare Krishna. What we are asking, what is the meaning of chanting Hare Krishna? Do you remember? Radha and Krishna, yeah. And when we chant, what is the mood? What we are asking for? Prabhupada nicely explained that. Do you remember, Prabhu?
We are praying for the mercy so that we can engage them in the service.
That's right. No, for example, Mother Hare, please engage me in devotional service. And we are also talking here that in this part it said that Lord Ananta is the reservoir of devotional service. So it's connected. By chanting Hare Krishna, we are requesting to be engaged in devotional service, and here is the reservoirs of devotional service. So if we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It said here, very important, in a congregational chanting. If we all together chant and glorify the Lord in that way, the effect of basically being engaged in devotional service would be, but also, here is another secret, the dirty things in our heart accumulated during many births immediately will be washed away. All those anarthas and contaminations. Again, here all the Shastras are complementing each other. Another confirmation that we need to have more faith in what we are doing, chanting the glories of Holy Name, chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is the most effective way how we can be elevated to our original position, getting liberated. And that's one way. Let's continue because time is about, okay. Lord Ananta Lord Anantadev is known as Shesha, the unlimited end, because he ends our passage through this material world. Simply by chanting his glories, everyone can be liberated. Yeah, another confirmation. It's not only Ananta because it's referring to his unlimited qualities and because he remains even the material nature is destroyed, but it's Ananta because he ends our passage in this material world. He has that capacity to finish that cycle that we are entangled, the samsara that we are, repeated birth and death. So he can finish that. For that also is called Ananta. So, the next text is, on his head, Ananta sustained the entire universe with his millions of planets, maintaining enormous oceans and mountains. He is so large and powerful that this universe rests on one of his hoods. Just like a drop of water, he does not know where is it. As we talked before, the whole Bhumanja is sitting on his head, on one of his hoods. And the whole weight of that, the whole Bhumanja is nothing for him. He doesn't even feel on his head. And so how strong, how the strength of Ananta is, it's like unlimited. While there in the universe on one of his hoods, Ananta chants the glories of Krishna with each of his 1,000 of mouths. Although he has been chanting the glories of Lord Krishna since time immemorial, he has still not come to their end. So it's another description of Lord Ananta. He is not just there trying to tolerate the weight of Bhumandal. As Krishna, he is always blissful. He has his own activities. In previous texts, we also read that the Lord Ananta is there in the Patalaloka, after Patalaloka, in between the Garbhodaka and Patalaloka. He's there holding the whole universe, but that is not the main activity that he has. No? He has loving exchanges with the residents of Patalaloka. There are Vidyadharas, even as other residents from there that are interacting with the Lord. And in that form, but quite personally I found interesting, is that the form of Ananta is spiritual, and those who are interacting with him in that region, they have also spiritual bodies. So they have their own exchanges, their own pastimes. And not just that, Ananta has 1,000 mouths, and he's all the time narrating, glorifying all the pastimes of Krishna. But he cannot finish. He has 1,000 of mouths. And he is still narrating those pastimes. And in the last text, it said that till this day, Lord Ananta continues to chant the glories of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu until he finish no end to them. Until he finds no end to them. The pastimes of Lord Chaitanya are included, and it's he doesn't finish with glorifying the Lord yet. A lot of pastimes to talk about, to narrate. And this is quite important too, because if Lord Ananta is glorifying all the pastimes of Krishna, narrating the experience of the nectar that he's experiencing nectar by narrating the pastimes At the same happen with devotees who are hearing and listening those glories of the Lord. Ananta is narrating those glories or pastimes of Krishna, experiencing nectar, and also allowing others to experience that nectar. In the 10th, if I'm not wrong, it's the 10th chapter of Bhagavad-gita. So I'm trying to... It's in the Bhagavad-gita, it's Krishna, Arjuna is telling Krishna, please continue, tell me more, I want to hear more about you. He's very grateful with Krishna, because Krishna is, this I think is the 5th, I'm getting confused. But basically, Arjuna is so happy to hear about the glories of Krishna, hearing from Krishna himself. And Arjuna said, please tell me more. I want to hear more about your glory, about your greatness, your capacity, your opulences. And then Krishna start to say, okay, Arjuna, don't worry, I'll tell you more. And Krishna start to mention some of his opulence. He said, okay, I have unlimited opulences, but I'll just tell you some of them. This is in 10th chapter of Bhagavad-gita, the opulences of the Supreme. And then Krishna said, well, among the different manifestations, for example, among of the beast, I'm the lion, among of all the hooded serpents, I'm Ananta. Yes, is that the part of the Bhagavad-gita when Krishna describes. But the point is basically a devotee, a pure devotee, is always experiencing nectar and hankering for more when he's listening and hearing about the glories of the Lord. And also when he is talking about Krishna's pastimes and glories, sharing with others. That is the way how Ananta, with thousands of mouths, he is narrating, praising the Lord, narrating his pastimes, and he's experiencing also a lot of nectar, ecstasies, and he is sharing that with others. And we can see in different degrees. We can experience that also in different degrees. When we share our realizations in Krishna consciousness with others, perhaps sometimes a little bit or more for those who are fortunate enough, when we share with others, when we preach, naturally comes that happiness is manifested in our heart. It's part of the same process that Ananta is engaged, is describing here, and is part of our constitutional position. Well, I ended here. If you have any questions, comments? Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. There was just one thing I was wondering.
Yes.
With some expansions of Krishna, like, say, like Balaram, for example, sometimes he acts like he doesn't know what, even though he's a Supreme Personality, he's an expansion, but sometimes he acts like he doesn't know, you know what I mean? Whereas the Supreme Person knows everything, but I don't know if he's just acting like that or he really is covered in some way, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Yeah, it's true, and it's not like acting and faking that I don't know, no? Yeah. But yes, at the same, that is the Achintya Veda Tattva I said that devotees usually say, trying to explain that Krishna, in all his, not just Balaram, it's Krishna himself too. He has the complete knowledge. He is omniscient. He knows everything. But at the same time, he tends to forget in order for the sake of the pastime, to have that loving exchange. And it's real. No? It's not like he doesn't know. But at the same time, he knows everything. So.
Is it more like a forgetfulness just for the moment? Is that what you mean?
For the pastime.
For the pastime.
For the exchanges that is required, and it's real. It's not like I know how. I think I don't know. No, he really forgets, but at the same time he doesn't forget. Can we understand that? It's hard.
Yeah.
No? Just one of the questions when we were reading this text in the Bhagavatam, he said, the Lord has unlimited forms, he manifests himself in many forms. How the human being can understand this with our capacity? How we see things, how we perceive things, we cannot understand. But it happened, yeah. Yeah, for that reason he's God too. Yeah, but it's true. He forgets, but at the same time he is completely omniscient of everything.
Inconceivable.
Inconceivable, yeah. Achintya Veda Veda Tattva means that inconceivable at the same time, yeah. For our limited thought process, how we try to engage things based on our perception. But when more advanced devotees they transcend that conditioning, they are able to understand, even to embody those qualities too. But at the moment for us it's inconceivable. But it is true. Thank you for asking. Hare Krishna. Any question, Prabhu? Yeah.
Thank you, Mataji, for nicely explaining Glories of Lord Ananta-shesha. Because you mentioned that the personal expansion of Lord Krishna is Balaram expanded to Shankarshan, then Mahavishnu, then of course we have so many. It seems like all of them are connected, plus all the paraphernalia to serve the Lord. So there are also expansions.
Yeah.
Then we are also small jiva, one sense expansion of Lord Krishna.
It's true.
Tiny.
True.
So it is all completely, sometimes it can be very confusing when we see this whole Ananta-deva as Ananta-shesha serving, then Vishnu, and then of course he is the one who is creating so many universes. Then after that he is the one taking care of each of these universes, very, like a drop of water holding. So this is very amazing.
It's true, Prabhu. Thank you so much for the comment. Yes, different categories of Krishna's energies. And he manifests everything. In that sense, if we have the proper knowledge, understanding what actually is, Krishna is present everywhere, and everything takes place because he is facilitating us. He said that Krishna doesn't want to create this material world, but at the same time he does it, only because of us. So he is displaying all the variety of his energies, and everything is connected to him at the end. The forms how he manifests his energies changes, but the original source, him, remain equal always. Thank you for the comment, Prabhu. Thank you. Grantara Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Premanandi, Haribo Vanchakalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhuvya cha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavibhyo, Namo Namaha.